Okay. We made one more change, and what we're going to see is if that solves the problem. So anyone listening, if you still hear the echo, unfortunately, we're going to have to abandon the live stream, and then we'll get back to you. And Mary, she's already graciously offered to come back on another day when we're not having technical difficulties. So anyway, so we're back, and so this is for the radio audience now, if this is hearing. But if you could ask if there's still an echo on the voice, I think we might be good. I think it might be solved. And if so, we're going to skip the...
We sound perfect now.
Oh, thank God.
Jared, thank you so much for helping us navigate through that.
Yep, we're going to skip the market minute, and we'll get back to that maybe later in the second hour. So I want to talk to Mary. Thank you so much, Mary, for coming into the studio. So first, do a proper introduction now that all the technical difficulties are done. Tell us who you are, what you're about, and what you're running for.
Absolutely. Well, one, thank you for having me, and
Of course.
have no problem coming back again because I feel very cool in here with all this radio equipment. My name is Mary Cole. I am currently a candidate for Lake County State's Attorney here in Lake County. Do you want to know more about my background? Or?
Yeah, tell us. Give us the whole origin story as if you're a superhero.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in Lake County. I have a brother and 2 living parents who are fantastic. I graduated from Deerfield High School. I have been working in the criminal justice system for about 16 years
wow.
in several different capacities. So my first job in the criminal justice system was not as a lawyer. I was a domestic violence victim advocate at a state's attorney's office in Southern Illinois, which followed me going to SIU. After that, I was a paralegal for our judges in Lake County. And then I was doing that while I was studying to get into law school. And I went to law school because I wanted to be a prosecutor, specifically a domestic violence prosecutor.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, but I got out of law school, finished on time, all that jazz. I was supposed to work at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, but they had an election season. So I guess that summer, there was a changing of the guard, and Kim Fox ended up winning the primary, and she didn't really honor the wait lists. So,
oh no,
it's okay. It was life had a plan. So I ended up spending my first 2 years as a practicing attorney in DeKalb as a public defender, which is a job I never thought I would do. In fact, it's like the opposite of what I thought I would do, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm defending the people who I thought I was going to lock up and get the bad guys. But it was a very important role for me to embrace because it really balanced out my understanding of the criminal justice system. You know, I truly believe that when it comes to whether it be victims or defendants, justice only happens when people are treated with dignity and respect in the system. So
I'd agree with that.
Yes. So anyways, so that happened. And then suddenly I got a call from Lake County, my hometown, and there was an opening at the Lake County State's Attorney's Office under Mike Nierheim. I interviewed there and instantly just fell in love with the office. And so that's kind of where I embarked on my first role as an actual prosecutor in the State's Attorney's Office. I loved working under Mike Nierheim. To be frank, I'm kind of a nerd. I was that weirdo that was there on the weekends, like won silly awards for, whatever. I was annoying. I was that person.
When you love what you do, it's not a nerd.
So that I made some lifelong friends there. I loved the work, the trial work. However, again, there was an election, and in 2020, Mike Nierheim lost the election, and the current state's attorney that's there now, Eric Reinhardt, took over. So I worked under both administrations. I decided eventually to leave the office based on my opinion that there were some ideological issues with how he was running the office, and I just disagreed with a lot of his choices. And
so can I interrupt? I've got a question.
Yes.
So because not everybody knows exactly what the state's attorney's office does, can you give just a kind of like a 15-second, what is the state's attorney, what do they do, and why are they elected as opposed to just hired, or how it works?
Understood. So the state's attorney's office is basically the body of authority in the government that is charged with prosecuting crimes. So most people think about crime, they think of the police, but the police kind of start the process, but it's up to the lawyers in the state's attorney's office to make a legal decision to bring charges against a person and to be a voice for victims of crime and to keep the community safe. So it's a pretty big deal.
Sure. So I see now why ideological decision making could play a role in the efficacy of that office, or how hard or soft on crime they are.
Right. And I think my first criticism as far as ideology, and I don't even know if ideology is the right word, the office became very political almost instantly. And that's something that I didn't understand was even on the table until it became political. And
So that's not normal. That's not typical.
no. The state's attorney's
under
office,
Nierheim?
right.
Not at all.
And I've worked in other offices. It's just not, you don't want justice dictated by how far left or right society is going, right? Justice is supposed to be blind. Justice is about doing what's right in a given case. And so when you throw politics into it, the way you throw politics into anything,
Sure.
it muddies the water and it creates problems. So eventually I left. I left because there was a supervisor that told some of the young assistants that they weren't allowed to use the word victim. She, I guess, said that we were allowed to use the term alleged victim or complaining witness, but there's no such thing as victims.
Whoa.
And I was a victim advocate, right? And I take that role seriously. And also, to backtrack, I was a victim in a criminal case, which is also part of why I went to law school to become a prosecutor, because I knew what it was like to be in the system in that perspective. And I think the role of the prosecutor is a very honorable job, and it's very important, because a victim in a case, unlike the accused, if someone's a defendant, they can hire or fire their own defense attorney if they don't feel like things are going right. A victim in a case doesn't have that choice.
Oh, really?
They don't get to hire a new prosecutor or fire the one they have. They're just hoping that whoever gets their case, whoever that stranger is, does their job and cares, right? And so when people in that office don't do their job, it has a huge impact on society.
Of course.
So, and also there, the morale with regard to law enforcement, that's definitely dwindled these past few years. And we just need some change. So that's why I'm running.
Well, that's a very, very honorable thing to do, and I appreciate you doing it. But I got to ask you, campaigns and politics are some of the nastiest things that we go through, and it seems to be getting worse and worse every year with these flyers and mailers going out that this person's terrible, this person's going to destroy the country, this person's the worst person since the name we won't mention, Voldemort. And so what inspired you to actually get off the bench and put yourself up for that type of interactions?
Well, I was first encouraged to do it by my former boss and someone who I look up to, who I consider a mentor, Mike Nierheim, right? I trust him dearly, and he's the one who originally asked me to consider running in 2024. I said, "You're crazy. Can I please have my letter of recommendation?" And I will be gone now. But as time went on, and I would check back in with the office because I'm so close to a lot of people there, and I was just watching kind of the fallout from what was going on, it became apparent that somebody had to run. And so I was approached again later, and at that point it became clear that no one else was really going to run. And so given the fact that I was asked by the one person in the world who could probably convince me it was a good idea, and because I still cared that much, I decided to do it. And at the end of the day, I tell people this all the time, my campaign colors are purple, because that's the color you get when blue and red come together. And I do think that there's a strong desire from the average citizen, like their nervous systems demand, that we be a little less political, right? And this is an office that has historically operated very well, not being political. And it will be an easy fix once you get there.
Yeah, I got to say, I've heard you speak before, and you don't seem to be rabid one side or the other. It seems like all of your positions that I've heard seem to be, fairly moderate, and with an emphasis on public safety, which I appreciate. I think the whole system has gotten far too partisan, far too political. Things seem to go through just because of a ideological bend and what sounds best in a soundbite, as opposed to foresight and looking at what are the actual effects, future effects of these types of policies. Do you mind, I want to ask you a question. We only got about 5 more minutes because I know you have to run. But do you mind talking at all about the Safety Act?
Sure. just generally?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of set it up on the tee, and then my understanding, and correct any misunderstanding. So basically, last year the Safety Act was implemented. It was pushed by 2 states attorneys in the out of the 102 states attorneys in Illinois. 2 states attorneys were huge proponents of it: Eric Reinhardt and Kim Fox from Chicago. And basically, it eliminates cash bail, pretrial release. It's been called the catch and release program. And ideally what it does, it takes criminals out of the judicial system, puts them in the street to recommit. We see it happening all the time in Chicago. There's some situations where it's happened in Lake County that I'm aware of, that maybe more that I'm not aware of. But do I have that right? And then how do you feel about that?
I think you've spelled it out correctly.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind, real quick, before jumping into that. So I'm hearing what your take is on what the effect is and the fact that it's sending them right back out. Can we talk on what the intended good is behind it, whether or not that's actually happening?
Yes, I think that the intentions that first gave rise to it, I think it's something everyone can agree with. The idea that 2 people could be charged with the same thing, and one person could be held in custody and the other be free, on bond, just based on their financial positioning, that was an inequity that I think we can all agree nobody agrees with, right? And so the original intentions of the act were to deal with that inequity. The way I've always put it is, the problem is, by the time that the bill went through, in remedying that one inequity, they created about 15 others. And more importantly, they created a huge imbalance, because that wasn't the only thing that was really addressed. This is like 800 pages of legislation that was passed, in my opinion, written by people who don't really understand how it works. And so when it was supposed to go into effect in January, it was delayed for a while because a lot of the prosecutors in Illinois stood up, and that's Republican and Democrat, except for Kim Fox and Eric Reinhardt, my opponent. Everyone else stood up and said, this is going to be a catastrophe if we don't at least adjust some of it. So thanks to, Bob Berlin and Patrick Neely and State Attorney Glasgow, they went in and helped amend it a great deal, so that the version of what we have it right now is actually much better than it was. You can still disagree with the overall act, but it's much better than what it would have been.
Okay.
And this was opposed by Republican and Democrat states attorneys throughout the state, right? It was a bipartisan opposition. So this isn't, red meat politics we're talking here. This is kind of valid concerns from the public and the people who actually practice the law.
Correct. And it's not a surprise that it doesn't work for the entire system, because it really wasn't designed to necessarily, help victims of crime or keep the community safer. It was designed to address an inequity with those people accused of crime, right? So it's not a giant surprise that the fallout,
Kind of a hard sell.
Yeah, exactly. and mind you, my opponent, Mr. Reinhardt, he had never prosecuted before. Like, he was a defense attorney for 18 years. He had never even prosecuted a speeding ticket. So for him to become like the chief prosecutor and to kind of promote that legislation, I guess in that regard isn't a giant surprise. It's a bit too political for my taking.
Sure, without actual knowledge of how it works.
Right.
We only got a couple more minutes, so I do want to give you an opportunity. I know you have an event coming up. So because we're community radio, we have very specifics. We can't tell people to go anywhere, but we can tell them where you'll be. Okay. And we can't say if there's a price of admission. We can't say how much it is, unless it's free, of course. But I do know you have an event coming up tonight, so tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, I would love to meet everybody who's listening right now. I will be at First Draft in Grays Lake this evening at 5:30. If you come in and say that you listen to Dick Barr's radio station, you're not going to have any trouble getting in. And even if you don't, you'll have no trouble getting in. I would love to have an opportunity to kind of explain in greater detail why I'm doing this and what I think we can change for the better. I think that people feel very burnt out right now, but there's a lot of reason to have hope, and there's a lot of reason for everyone to muster up the courage to try and build a better tomorrow.
I mean, that's such a great point, and I love that you used the word hope, because here's my hope, that we can start having conversations again and stop being so divided. But it doesn't help. Everything comes out on Facebook, social media, the news media. Everything is it looks like it's intent to be divisive. and I don't think it's doing us any good. So thank you for kind of being that moderate purple voice in the greater narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anything that our like regular listeners hear me say over and over again, we get a lot of questions about like how to find the best place to go, right? And I'm always preaching like, that's great. Let's try and find the best place to go. But what can we do to make here great, right here, right
Absolutely.
now? Where are you, and how can you make it better? And I just think it's really cool that you decided that now is the time for you to take that on and do that for your community as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And just so you guys know, I know everyone's like, oh, well, can change really happen? This is one office where the state's attorney has such broad discretion that one person can make a giant difference. And so this is a race to pay attention to. It is.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here. I know you've got a tight day. Thank you. I hope you'll come back and be one of our featured interviews, because we have a lot of fun when we're not having technical difficulties, and we just have kind of great conversations. And a lot of time our guests will come in and just be a part of the whole show and kind of put in their 2 cents. And so you have an open invitation anytime. You're welcome back. Mary Cole, running for Lake County State's Attorney, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Hope to see you guys tonight.
Great. Yes, I'll definitely be there. Okay, folks, thanks so much. And thanks for dealing with us with the crazy start to the show we had.
Dick, you kept your cool really well.
No, maybe outside.
You did. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have necessarily known if you were freaking out on the inside. So
I
good
was
job.
definitely freaking out. But thanks, Kristen. Much appreciated. We'll be right back.
Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr will return in just a few moments after these important messages. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Unlocking Lake County with your host, Dick Barr.
And welcome back, Lake County. This is your host, Dick Barr, with Unlocking Lake County, here with the beautiful Kristen Kaufman. Say hello.
Welcome back, friends.
And we got a special guest in our studio now, who's going to be joining us as our featured interview at the 1 o'clock hour. But he's going to be part of the conversation now, and that's Paul Berker, Lake Villa Township Trustee. Say hello.
Hi. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. For those just joining us, we had Mary Cole in the studio before. What a kind of delightful personality.
Yeah.
I find, and just kind of it was nice to have her. Hopefully we can get her back and do the full length interview and get to know more about her positions and what she plans to do with that office. And for those listening who want to meet her, she will be at First Draft in Grays Lake this evening at 5 o'clock, she said, I believe. And I think she'll be there 5 to 7. So everyone's welcome to go down and say hello and introduce yourself and get to learn more about her. So we appreciate her coming in. So we didn't get a chance to do our Market Minute at the last break. And because we had some technical difficulties. So I think we've got them fixed now. So we're going to give it one more try to get to give you everything you want to know about what's happening in Northwest Lake County in real estate.
Stay on top of the market with Dick Barr's Market Minute.
Dick Barr's Market Minute.
Okay, and welcome back. This is Dick Barr with your weekly Market Minute for Northwest Lake County. You're not going to find this data anywhere because we compile it directly from the source. Any data that you see typically that's out there in general is usually going to be large, geography, regional, or weeks or months old. So we give it to you straight from the source every week up to the minute. For Northwest Lake County, we have 155 active homes on the market, 50 new listings this week compared to 63 last week, and 64 under contract this past week compared to 60 the prior week. Under contract in the past 30 days, there were 173 homes, as a big tick up from last month where there was 117. Days on market average for the region is 16 days, with a less than 1 month at 0.7 months supply of inventory. Lowest priced in the area was $128,000, with the highest sold of $1.1 million and the highest active price of $4.9 million. Median home price in the area was $366,900. Now on over to Antioch, where they're sitting on the most active in the region at 37 active properties for sale. 9 new listings this week compared to 16 last week. Big drop off. They went from the most to one of the lowest in new listings, which is probably good because they have a kind of a high days on market average and at least a month supply. 13 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days, slightly up from the prior week where there was 10. 35 homes have gone under contract in the past month, almost double the prior month where there was 18. Days on market average is a very respectful, only 13 days, with a 1 month supply of inventory, which is tied for the highest month supply with the Villa, Fox Lake, and Ingleside area. Lowest price in the area was $188,000 with a $510. Highest price sold, $2.5 million is the highest active property, and $353,000 is the median. Now on over to Volo, Fox Lake, and Ingleside, where there's 22 homes active on the market. Only 3 new listings this week compared to 7 the prior week. 6 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days, slightly down from the 9 the prior. And 12 homes have gone under contract in the past 30 days. Slight tick up from the prior, where there was 10. We have 34 is the days on market average for the area with a 1 month supply of inventory. We've got $136,000 as the low price, $470,000 as the high price, and $1.7 million is the highest active price, and a median price of $339,000. Then we've got we're going to head over to Grace Lake, Gages Lake, Haynesville, Third Lake, and Wildwood, where 25 homes are sitting on the market. 10 new listings this week, square even with the prior week where there was 10 as well. 10 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days, slightly up from the 8 the prior week. And the 28 homes have gone under contract in the past 30 days, a big jump from 18 the prior 30 days. And then 34 days on market average with a 1 month supply of inventory. 136,000 was the low, 470,000 was the high. Nope. 160,000 was the low. 675,000 was the high. The highest active is 977,000, and the median price of 382,000. Now on over to Gurney, Wadsworth, and Old Mill Creek, where 34 homes are sitting on the market. 12 new listings this week, slight tick up from last, where there was 11. And 28 homes have gone under contract in the past 30 days, almost double the prior month. And 10 days on market is the average. That's the lowest in the area. And month supply just under 1 month at 0.9 months. 176,000 is the lowest price sold, and 1.1 million is the high. Highest active price is 4.9 million, and a median price of $436,000. Now on over to our backyard of Lindenhurst and Lake Villa, where 25 homes are sitting on the market. Only 6 new listings this week, about half of the prior week. 14 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days, slightly up from the 10 the prior week. 28 homes have sold in the past 30 days with 24 the prior month, and a days on market average of just over 2 weeks at 15 days. 0.6 month supply of inventory. 128,000 was the lowest price, 700,000 was the high, and the highest active home is 4.5 million. Median price for the area is 377,000. Now to finish up with the Round Lake area, where 12 homes are sitting on the market. That's the lowest in the area. 10 new listings this week, slightly up from the 7 the prior week. 12 homes have gone under contract in the past 7 days, and which was 12 the prior as well. 36 homes have sold in the past 30 days, which is the highest in the region, and that's up from the 26 the prior 30 days. Days on market average is only 15 days with a 0.3 month supply of inventory. Terribly low. 185,000 is the lowest price. Highest price sold is 467,000, and the highest active $689,000 with a median price, lowest in the region, $315,000. And that'll do it for our Market Minute. Kristen, what do you make of all that?
I'm listening to you talk about all the houses that just got listed, and I'm pretty sure I'm scheduled to go show all of them this week.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's not a problem at all. Buyers are actively out there looking. They're trying.
And I think it probably helps with we had a pretty big interest rate drop last week. Sly told us from 7.4 to 7.
Yeah, and I'm noticing a certain level of acceptance. I touched on that a little bit last week. I'm noticing a certain level of acceptance coming from buyers who are just willing to finally step into the market and kind of recognizing, I'm realizing that maybe that 2% interest rate was the exception and not the thing I'm supposed to be holding out for. I don't want to wait anymore to see if it's going to get better or worse. I just need to get started. And I think that that's really cool that buyers are starting to recognize that if it's the right time for you, it's the right time for you. And it's just, we're going to make it work however it is we need to for you at this time.
That's a brilliant point. And I think that's an important lesson for the buyers to have, especially now while we're starting to see a fair amount of inventory, something we haven't seen in 4 years.
Yeah.
What would you, when you think the buyers right now, are they starting to change their expectation of what they can buy for their dollar, or are they still shooting for the moon and paying these high prices?
I think it's a little bit of everything, honestly. It's kind of all over the place. I haven't really noticed a specific pattern with any of the buyers that I'm working with. I'm seeing sort of in a wide-eyed approach to looking at houses and being like, oh, it's fine, I don't mind that, I don't mind that, I don't mind that. We just need to get a place. And then kind of all the way on the other side of things being like, well, I want this, I want this, I want this. This has been sitting on the market for a week now. So, and I'm like, no, that's not a long time.
It feels like it.
It does these days. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We definitely seeing a dynamic difference. Paul, do you pay attention to like the real estate that's going on in Venetian Village at all?
A little bit.
There's been some surprisingly high prices for, what would be, some typical almost bungalow style small ranches, maybe things built on piers. Some of those are getting into the high twos, 300,000s, maybe 400,000s.
Yeah, well, quite a few houses were summer homes, and over the years, a lot of them have been bought and torn down, and good houses are going into those spots.
Yeah, why don't you bring that microphone just a little bit closer to your face, because we trail off just a bit. So
okay.
There was, speaking of Venetian Village, and we'll kind of get more into this when we talk about after the top of the hour when we talk about Venetian Village. The biggest thing that I see that buyers sometimes kind of sway away from is having to have a well and a septic. Can you go into that just a little bit?
Well, I don't. A lot of the people here, I think, actually prefer to have a well and a septic, except unless you're in a real low spot.
and that's for septic reasons, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, and this year's been a little wetter than normal. I mean,
really,
mowing the lawn's been really tough. Sinking into the front yard. Not my yard, but I mow the lawn around the village hall there, and
right.
It's been real soupy around the edges.
Oh, really? Now, so where the Venetian Village Civic Center is that a low spot?
No, it's not. And where we had our meeting last week,
yeah.
Out there and sort of towards the street and in front of the garage. I mean, it's standing water actually over there.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, it just it's got nowhere to go anymore.
It's funny, when I was on the county board, I would say the number one complaint I got from residents was drainage issues. Complaining about neighbors draining onto their properties. And it's the hardest issue to address because state law says you have to allow water to flow downhill. And the county can't get involved. And a lot of times we got to tell the constituent base, sorry, but if you're not getting what you want from us, your only other option is litigation. And I don't know if any of them ever got into litigation. I'm sure in some instances, but litigation is expensive, and
yeah.
The problem's got to be big enough that it's worth for you to spend thousands, tens of thousands, maybe litigating it.
Well, compared to when I moved in '86, and now, I mean, drainage is a lot better. I mean, a lot of the problems that were bad have been fixed. I mean, much improved. In fact, the lot further away from my house was so bad that if I tried to mow it, the mower would sink in right up to the frame.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez.
It had cattails growing in it. Now,
really?
Obviously,
wow.
The last 20 feet was cattails. And,
Wow.
Jim Jorgensen, redid a lot of the
Yeah.
pipes and stuff. And, now it's almost, a normal... there's no cattails. I'll tell you that.
I know Jim does a great job over there in the village. He's constantly battling drainage issues. You raised something I just saw on a meme recently, and it was a story about quicksand. And the Gen Xers, we believed that quicksand would be a far greater threat to mankind than it has turned out to be. And that's because, and so what this meme addressed was how prevalent quicksand was in all the movies of the era.
Absolutely. It was in like every action movie that I remember watching as a kid.
Right.
I'm not even Gen X.
Right, yeah. And so it was like lava and quicksand. Those I was going to die of either lava or quicksand at some point in my life. But we're going to get into our Mythbusters and talk a little bit because we have about 5 minutes left before the hour. And Kristen, if you don't mind, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
This is one of my favorite bits that we do because we get a lot of people who assume things that aren't so. And so we want to help kind of dispel some of those myths. And these are also kind of that come from a lot of the questions we get from buyers and sellers as well. So I'm going to get started right away. Kristen, myth number 1, you need a 20% down payment to buy a home.
Oh, I wish Sly was here for this one. Okay, so the concept of needing a 20% down payment is primarily there to avoid having to pay what is PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. So spending a little bit more money to save a little bit more money on like your monthly payment. It exists. It's never a bad idea if you have the money to put down more for your home, for sure. You do not have to by any means. There are several programs that exist that can get you down as low as a 3% down payment.
Yeah, and there's like even a 3% conventional. You don't have to go FHA. We know Sly's got 3% conventional products.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're VA, what can you do?
You can do 0%.
You could do 0%.
Absolutely. This is one of the reasons why I always tell people, talk to a lender before you start your process at all, right? Because if you're sitting at home and you are waiting and you are saving and you're scraping together. When I was buying my first home, I literally had a change jar where I would throw all of my spare change in just to try and scrape up all the money I could together to get started in my home ownership journey. And that was a good idea. However, if you can have a conversation with a lender early on, they can put you on to some of the programs that exist so that you are not sitting on the sidelines waiting quite as long because maybe you didn't need to save as much money as you thought you did.
Exactly. We run into that all the time. People spend 5 years, 10 years, like I'm just saving for a down payment.
Because they assumed that they had to.
Right. And meanwhile, they missed 5 to 10 years of equity potential. They get in so late in the game, especially now with prices that they are the way they are. But not just low down payment. There's programs that will even give you money for the down payment.
Yep.
Things that some of them you don't even have to pay back
Absolutely.
if you live in the house long enough.
So total myth.
Total myth. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one, that you have to have perfect credit to buy a home.
You need to have perfect credit to buy a home. You do not need to have perfect credit to buy a home. Obviously, you want to do everything you can to improve your credit before making any large purchase that's going to require you to pay interest on. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Talk to a lender early. Even if you know your credit's not great, talk to a lender early. They can give you advice and tips on how to improve your credit to get you where you need to be if you're not currently where you need to be. But again, a lot of times people really just assume that it's impossible for them because of X, Y, and Z circumstances, whether it be that they don't have a lot of cash or they don't have perfect credit, and they tell themselves no before even giving themselves the opportunity to try. And it just might not be the case. I mean, you could speak to a lender and find out that it's completely possible within your current circumstances. And if it's not, they can give you tips on how to get there.
Excellent. I give you a 10 out of 10 on that answer. Let's say next myth, best time to buy a home is springtime.
Best time to buy a home is springtime. So you're going to see a lot more inventory in theory in the spring, although I wouldn't say that was true this year, would you?
No, definitely not.
I'd say there was more in the summertime this year than I saw in the spring for sure.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of different strategies involved with buying. I mean, you're taking into consideration what does your competition look like, right? So if you're buying in winter, for example, which is when I purchased my first home, we had no competition. There was no one else looking in the dead of January to buy a home and move in 6 feet of snow that summer or that winter. So no, it's not necessarily going to be the best time to buy a home. It's really just going to come down to what your goals are and what your professional realtor suggests for you to do based on what your individual goals are.
Yeah, your individual goals and the data as it exists. And you say it all the time. The best time to buy is when it works for you. I would say probably it's a true statement for the sellers. Usually better to sell in the springtime because the most buyers are out there, and that's good for a seller.
Yeah.
But having more buyers as competition, as you mentioned, doesn't always lead to the best outcomes for you. And we had, I remember one time we listed a home on the day before Christmas Eve. And it was funny because we were just playing around. We weren't expecting a lot of buyers to come, so we made a joke and we advertised it as definitely not haunted. It's definitely not haunted. And in one of the photos, even put an apparition in the photo just to be funny. And it wound up selling on Christmas Eve.
Beautiful.
Right? But there was a buyer looking. They saw something that was perfect for them. They really had to have a house that was not haunted, and it was just perfect timing.
Great.
Sorry.
Beautiful.
Okay. Oh, I think we got time for one quick more. You should renovate your home before selling.
You should always renovate your home before selling. Is that the myth?
Well, it's not
just you
stated
should?
there. You should renovate. Should kind of says is almost a shall, right?
Okay,
So that's what the myth is. You should renovate your home.
Okay, so listen, I actually just had this conversation earlier today with a client that I'm working with. You can always spruce up your home, for sure. And if you ask really any realtor, what can I do to get my home to sell for more? We're going to have a list. And if you want more, we can give you more. There's always going to be things that you can do to try and get more money for your home. However, not everything is going to have an immediate return on investment. Not everything is going to be worth the money that you're putting in or the time that you're putting in, depending on, again, what your individual goals are for your sale. So yes, you can always do things to spruce up your home. And of course, you want to be able to present your home as positively as possible to elevate your sale, but you don't have to renovate your entire home before selling.
And that would be another question I think you should ask your professionals is based on the data today, based on the number of homes available, based on the number of buyers in the market, does it make sense to do a renovation and then will I get my money back? Or will spending money on a renovation and spending time on a renovation put me past the best time to sell?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Kristen, thank you very much. Those are
Of
some
course.
great points, and we're going to head to a break. We'll be right back.
Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr will return in just a few moments after these important messages. Don't touch that dial.
Welcome back, Lake County. This is your host, Dick Barr, with Unlocking Lake County, here with Kristen Kaufman. Say hello.
Welcome back, everyone.
And our special guest, the featured guest this week, Paul Berker, Lake Villa Township Trustee and Venetian Village Civic Association President. Paul Berker.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. I like having people who understand technology in here because this is such a cool space that we've got. And Paul, I know you're kind of a technophile, so to speak. I've been through your warehouse and seen a lot of the cool technology that you have. So give us an introduction. Who are you? What do you do? What's your history, background? And then I want to talk some about unincorporated living and some of the Lake Villa Township stuff.
Well, I've been doing computer stuff since mid-'70s. I was a Fortran programmer, actually, with punch cards.
No one listening knows what Fortran is.
Yeah. There's a few old guys that might know.
Yes.
But, IBM 360, maybe when you were a kid you heard about those, but those were the kind of machines that I worked on.
Okay. Would those have been like the Wang machines with the giant floppy disks?
Well, similar, yeah. I mean, they had... what they call platters, giant platters that were like, a couple foot across, spinning things, and they held 5 megabytes.
I remember when I bought my first gigabyte hard drive. I think it was right around 1995 area, and I was just so excited.
Yeah.
What was your first computer you ever worked on?
Well, the first one that I owned was an Apple II, and that would have been like 1976. But
Apple II, okay. So I worked on Apple IIs and Apple IIes with doing some spreadsheet software, playing Oregon Trail, of course. And then they had a really cool Jeopardy game that we had, and it had some of the earliest components of what do you call it when it it takes your input that you type and it like auto corrects it. So if like you were to type, it approximates what you mean, so it doesn't have to be verbatim. So, and I'll explain the situation. I was playing a game of Jeopardy, and the answer was something like this moment celebrated on the 15th of March every year, blah blah blah, whatever it was, and the category was things that start with I, and I jumped in, and my answer was Independence Day, and it gave me the answer right, because Independence Day was close enough to Ides of March, according to the Apple IIe computer. What's funny about that is I have a friend to this day, we only talk one time a year, and we just text each other saying Happy Independence Day on March 15th.
Oh, that's so funny.
And that goes back to like the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you do hardware, software, both?
Everything, pretty much from where your these days where your internet comes in and to the computers, the wiring, the switches, the computers, pretty much the software, debugging people's problems, if they got a virus or if they got just something that isn't working right.
Are most of your clients, are they corporate clients? Are they individuals?
Mid-sized businesses, businesses that have a few $1 million worth of sales a year or more.
Okay.
But not huge.
Yeah.
They've got guys in suits. Remember the old commercials where the guy had the white Corvette and the white lab jacket, and he'd get into his Corvette and take off, because he did computer work,
Oh, okay. Computer industry has changed quite a lot over time. I was in computers right before the .com crash, and just about everyone was making money at that time. Big dollars, even for simple
everybody
A+ repair.
put a shingle out and says, I do computers,
I loved how like someone who can like turn a screw was calling themselves an engineer. I'm a computer engineer. Well, yeah. So what's that? I don't know, but I can unscrew it.
Well, a lot of it is there is some certification things that you can have as a computer person,
Right.
But most of them don't have any kind of credentials as far as that goes. With me, it's pretty much referrals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been working for one of my same companies since 1980.
Oh wow.
Oh.
I hope they've upgraded some of their equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, every 10 or 20 years we got to upgrade.
Now, some of the cool things that I saw in your shop there were some of the old entertainment games, the old nickel games, the quarter games. Like my favorite is the bowler with the actual ball and not the puck.
Right.
Do you fix those for people? Or you just fix them for yourselves?
Well, for the most part, for myself, and especially some of that stuff is, if they'd have to be almost in the neighborhood, otherwise, it's too far away to be traveling every day. Some of it takes, weeks or months to do a total repair.
Yeah, because there's a lot of contacts in those games.
I probably spent, a year or two, in spare time fixing the one big ball bowler that I have.
Really?
It came in and it was in sad shape. I got it for $300.
Oh, wow.
And it had been in a bar, and it had somebody threw a ball through the back glass, and it was dirty, and just the wood was in really bad shape, So, it took a lot of physical labor just to get the outside cosmetics repaired and looking decent again.
So this is something you actually have in common with my co-host, Kristen. Kristen's husband does the same thing. He's in this business.
He is, yeah. He and his business partner own an arcade out in Gurnee, and then they run an arcade that's local. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the business name or not. So
you can say where they work.
yeah,
Sure.
so he runs Christoph's Entertainment Center over in Round Lake Beach, and his absolute favorite part of his job is being able to take apart the games and learn how they work and fix them up. And he and his business partner also do personal calls to fix up like pinball machines and stuff like that. Yeah, he loves it. It's so much fun for them.
So Paul, I don't want to just spend too much time on this because I want you to talk a little bit about the kind of the public work you do. So tell us a little bit about Lake Villa Township and your role with them.
Oh, gee, because I've been involved in the Venetian Village for a long time, and going back to I can't remember who the gal was before Sue Hansen was supervisor. Dorothy Thompson
Oh, okay.
was township, and we went to township meetings a lot back in those days, to complain about one thing or another. It's always, you don't go to a meeting unless you got something to complain
You
about.
show up to be like, just wanted to let you know everything's going great.
Right?
Bye.
Rarely.
Yeah, exactly. Our room is empty when we have meetings now because nobody's, for the most part, nothing to complain about. But,
I mean, that's a good problem to have.
we had, in those days, we were talking about Mobileye and Neighborhood Watch, pre-cell phone. Nobody had a cell phone. We had walkie-talkies and CBs if we were lucky.
Right.
And our big thing was like in the early days, in Halloween, was to try to keep the kids safe. And back in the 80s, the parents didn't go out trick-or-treating with their kids. I mean, the kids
Really?
were just. Oh, I mean, the kids, were just walking around all by themselves. Occasionally,
yeah.
they had, an older brother with them or something, but for the most part.
Such a crazy concept.
And there was some really, I wouldn't say bad things happening, but there are people running around stealing the candy from the kids and stuff. And, some of the older teenagers were, acting less than desirable. But, and then there was vandalism, the M80s and the pumpkins and all that kind of stuff going on. So we put together a neighborhood watch Mobileye thing. So we had probably a half a dozen people in cars that would drive around during Halloween. We had the magnetic signs on the side of the car and all that. And we sort of tried to keep things under control. And when somebody was like the base station, we'd talk back to them and see if we had to call the county for the sheriff to come out and stuff like that.
And that's an interesting point, too, because you being an unincorporated, the coverage of the sheriff is very limited.
Yeah, you don't see him very often. If you think about the whole county, there's maybe 5 squads. And if you divide the township up into quarters, there's 1 squad in each quarter and a 5th one that's a floater that goes around, especially at nighttime.
Yeah.
So, it's going to take a while before they show up for something. And, these days there's so much going on. The stolen cars and break-ins and stuff. It's a miracle that they can get to you at all.
Will Lake Villa ever step in an emergency and get there if necessary?
Yeah. Lindenhurst or Lake Villa, they'll show up on something that's critical.
So Lindenhurst, too.
Oh, yeah. Lindenhurst has come over for some things.
Oh, that makes sense because that entrance.
They're actually a lot closer.
Yeah, they're right there by Granada. Yeah, that makes sense. And think of that. I always think about Lake Villa when I think of Venetian Village. But proximity-wise, you're closer to Lindenhurst.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about, so you've been on the township board since?
I'm going to say 03, 04, somewhere in that range. So about 20 years now coming up.
Okay, cool. You do a good job as far as I'm concerned. I don't see any problems. I consider what the township provides for the cost is superb. You look at all these surrounding communities, and they have very expensive what do you call them, park districts.
Well, I think the things are, Dan Venturi's a supervisor, and not to be patting him extra on the back, but all these things that are going on is because he just makes it run smooth. He's really the best supervisor since I've lived here that we've had.
What are some of the things that are going on? What are you guys talking about?
Well, going back to the beginning, when he was working with the building that used to be Gavin North School, and we converted that to township purposes. We acquired the building. I don't remember what we paid for it, but it wasn't a lot. And, we put money into fixing it up, getting rid of the asbestos and getting the HVs, the heating and air conditioning going. Now it turned into a space for the assessor to move into because he was out of space in the building we had. And then the rest of the place, has a gymnasium and different things. And so we were...
Yeah, my kids used to play floor hockey there, iceless hockey.
Yeah,
Oh,
and a lot of the schools, they have their practices in there for cheerleading or I don't know what some of the other things are, but they're in there a lot using the facilities and then the classrooms. In the past, we've had homeschoolers using the building, although they're not currently, but they were in there one day a week filling the place up.
Like a homeschool group?
Yeah,
Well,
they were using a majority of the space in the building.
Really?
Oh, there were a lot of them in there.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure where they're at now, but they're not there now. Then we had some different. The scouts are in there big time. 1 day a week.
What about Camp Peacock? I know that's something that the township took on, and I know that's a successful.
Well, that was a huge thing. We'd been looking at it for a couple of years before we did get it, and we were actually in negotiations trying to purchase it, and the people that we were trying to purchase it from were a little difficult because we'd come up on a thing and we'd say, hey, okay, $1.3 million or something, and wind up then negotiations fell apart at the last minute, even though they'd keep changing the offer here. And so, we just finally at the end, we just said, forget it. It just, wasn't going to work out, and we didn't want to pay as much as they wanted after a point. They sort of went financially downhill. They were like a summer camp for the kids.
Okay.
And by the time they foreclosed on it, the bank, and then the bank was coming up on the end of the year, and the bank says, hey, we want to get this off the books. So, and Dan says, hey, what can we get it for? And it's like, I forget how many acres, but there's like about 13 acres of land.
Yeah.
And there's more acres that are underwater in
And
the
where
lake.
is this?
Deep Lake Road.
I've
Deep Lake-
never heard of Camp Peacock before.
Really?
Yeah, I've been there forever. I can't.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
About halfway down from Grand
Okay.
on the right, as you're
Oh.
going north, and there's a little sign over on the right.
Okay. I'm sure it's one of those things that I never paid attention to, and then now that I know where it is, I'll never not see it.
Probably, but it fills up quick. The camp fills up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they don't do a big marketing blitz. It's
Oh,
not.
okay.
If you don't know, you probably will never see it.
Oh, it's full of 100 kids right now if
Right.
you went out there.
Cool.
But the ones who do, they love it.
Sure.
Oh,
every
yeah.
year.
I think he said it filled up in 5 minutes this year when they opened up registration.
Cool.
Oh, really? 5 minutes?
Or something like that. There was a waiting list, and it was all over before it started almost.
Now, I want to get to the Venetian Village Civic Association for a bit before we run out of time, because I think Venetian Village, West Miltmore, that whole area, that was my favorite area. When I was on the county board, I loved that community because it reminded me of like the old times. It's such a close knit. Everybody knows each other.
It's the largest unincorporated area in Lake County.
Wow.
Is that right?
Yes.
The largest contiguous
Right.
section of. Okay.
Interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
I don't know if you remember a thing called Liberty Lakes.
No.
That doesn't know. That was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And there was a push to create a new, I don't know, call it a city or an incorporation that would have taken in Venetian Village, West Miltmore, down to Volo. It was sort of it was sort of a weird little spider's web of stuff, and they were trying to get it together to keep from getting sucked up by the other communities around.
Yeah.
And it didn't go anywhere, but it was a big push.
I think most of the residents I know in the area, they like their kind of non-incorporated status. They like their freedoms. But I think when we're showing buyers homes in that area, a lot of them object to having the well and septic. But I know a lot of you guys, you love your well and septic.
There's a few that don't. Every time that comes up, you have a room full of people.
Oh, yeah?
If you say, hey, we want to talk about sewers or something, and you're going to have a lot of people. But then as soon as people realize what the assessment's going to be, let's say we contracted with Lindenhurst or
Right.
Lake Villa to get sewers brought in, the first thing you find out is, here's a $30,000 hookup fee or
Right.
something. It's a lot of money.
It's not cheap.
And then all of a sudden people, their eyes sort of go wide at that point. But the thing is Lindenhurst and Lake Villa don't want to do anything like that because their houses are too far apart.
Right.
It takes, too many lineal feet of hookup lines that they'd have to run per resident hookup
connection.
fee. It just doesn't financially work. Plus the fact that they're at capacity. They don't have any capacity that they have or the future they want to put into a new development.
Right. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. because if they were to do it, obviously they would need to do an SSA, and the cost to the community would fall almost entirely on the Venetian Village community. You're talking about millions upon millions of dollars to do a project like that.
And realistically, I think the only way it would happen is if the federal government came in and says you got to do it. For whatever reason that there was groundwater pollution or something, you know, that they said you got to do something to remedy the problem.
Like if something's getting into Miltmore or something's getting into the Sand Lake. What about wells? A lot of our buyers, they're afraid of the idea of wells. Are wells a big deal? Are they a problem?
Going back a few years ago, when before the surrounding community started getting Lake Michigan water, there was a feeling, and it was probably true to a certain point, depending on how deep your well was, at what level it was at, that they were pumping the groundwater table dry. Like Lindenhurst and Lake Villa and Round Lake Beach were, pumping a lot of water out of the table, and some people's wells were drying up, and this goes back to the 90s, when that was, we actually, my original well, wasn't real deep. I mean, it was maybe 60, 70 feet. It wasn't down very far. And it was an old thing. It looked like Green Acres. I had a big cement cubicle, and you opened a trap door in the top, and the wells, the motor's sitting there out in the open right there, and then it's got a little sub pump to pump the water out of the bottom. And it was almost sort of comical. But at some point, the motor failed once, and I got a new motor, but it all had to sort of be done on the slide because the whole thing was not up to code.
Right.
So the county, if they got sniffing around on it, I'd have been out of water. But, I did get a new well put in, and he went down pretty far. I don't even remember how far, but he says it was about as deep as he could go.
Okay. Now, the aquifer that we hit, does that water come from Lake Superior? Is that water that comes actually underneath Lake Michigan? And
I'm not sure the particulars on it, but, it goes back to way back, Ice Age type stuff.
Right. So the water that they're drinking in Venetian Village is like literally prehistoric.
Wow. It's funny. You were talking about attitude, like just public opinion and attitude towards well water. And I do find that buyers that I work with currently are usually pretty apprehensive to take on well water, except for people who grew up in Venetian Village. So my mom grew up in Venetian Village, and I have a handful of friends and family members that grew up in the area, and all of them will be like, I swear by it, well water was fine. I never had a single problem with it. I don't know if there's something different about the way that it works out there, but every person that I know who's spent time living in Venetian Village will defend well water down to their core. Well,
I grew up in the sticks, so we had well water as a kid. And, so I didn't have any preconceived notions. And the same thing with septic. I mean, I knew when I was looking for a house, don't buy the house at the bottom of the hill. I'd say, if you have a water softener, I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I mean, we get a little bit of iron in our water. So, I mean, I get rust.
The rust stains. Sometimes you get a little bit of the smell.
And then I'm fortunate that my water doesn't. We've had problems at the hall with the water sort of having a smell that would get going. But, with the sanitation kits that you can buy at Menards, you can sanitize your well. And that's, stop that problem right away.
So I typically try to educate buyers, wells are not that difficult to deal with. The biggest problem with a well is if you have to replace it. Everything else is fairly, a water softener to make it feel better, not so hard, not smell bad, taste good. If you have bacteria, like you said, you sanitize it. It's a real easy, cheap fix. When we do well tests on property transfers, it's got to pump 5 gallons a minute. It's got to not be contaminated, and that's just about it. As long as it's doing that, it's fine. And the beauty is you don't pay for that water. You don't get a $300 a month or every 2 month water bill, and you can water your lawn. I don't know. Can you water your lawn with well water? Do you risk ruining, drying out?
Well, I think some people may be worried about that back when, I haven't heard any problems in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, okay.
Since more of these people have gotten, cities have gotten Lake Michigan water. I think it's taking the stress off of the water table.
Would anyone consider filling their pool with well water, or would they buy that water?
I think you'd probably be better off buying the water. Have a
Okay.
truck come in and do it. I mean, I personally wouldn't. Just to think about, it's not worth, ruining my well
Right.
to pump. How many gallons of water does a pool hold,
Right, yeah, I don't know, like 35,000 gallons,
It's a
depending
lot.
on the size.
Would that
Paul,
ruin your well? I didn't know anything about that.
I'm sorry, what?
That would ruin your well doing that?
Well, you wouldn't want to pump it dry because then you get all the sediment and different things might get into the bottom of the pump and the filter
Okay.
and then how long does it take for it to refill? I mean, it's sort of scary. I don't know the answers on that.
Paul, we got to cut to a break. Are you going to stick around with us for a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. We'll be right back.
Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr will return in just a few moments after these important messages. Don't touch that dial. Dick Barr.
Welcome back to Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr. I'm your host, Dick Barr, and I'm here with Kristen Kaufman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Still joining us in the studio is Paul Berker.
Hey,
And I don't know what that voice track was on that song. I don't know if it's recorded with the song track, but I definitely don't think that's from the original recording of it. I only heard it in the headphones, though. I didn't hear it when it was coming through the speakers. But you had your headphones on the whole song,
I
right?
did, yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't know. It sounded like a foreign language, and I hope it wasn't dirty by any means because it sounded a little bit risque. So sorry about that. I got to check. I got to write a note to myself to check that track before it gets played again. So Paul, thanks for coming back with us. Just kind of like one of the things I wanted to make sure we got to, because anytime we're talking about how to make an area a good place for people to move to, they want to be there. It's about making providing amenities, places for socialization and stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about the Civic Center for the Venetian Village. I know you're the president of it. Can you? So what does the Civic Center, the Civic Association, what do they do in Venetian Village?
well, it's different than a lot of places. I mean, some places have community centers and you can rent them to do different things, and they got a pool and all that kind of stuff.
Sure,
But
yeah.
I mean, this goes way back to the 40s when they started to when they developed the land. I guess in the 20s and 30s, they allocated an area there to be dedicated for community use in perpetuity or something like that. And in the 40s, early 40s, they started building the community center. They put a foundation in, and they were, just different volunteers in the neighborhood were starting to put it together. And then World War II broke out.
Ah.
So then the whole thing just sort of sat for the duration of the war. And then when they came back from the war, then they continued to put it together. And then the building was, finished at some point after that. And then it was dedicated in the early 50s, to the community and to the, I forgot the founder's name, the guy that originally owned all that farmland and turned it into a development. It's been used as a, meeting place, monthly meetings. Most of the residents back then lived in Chicago, and they came out to the village on the weekends or in the summer. Outside of that, we had the picnics and different events. A lot of that stuff happened, I won't say before I was there, but I mean, they've even way back had like a little carnival and stuff like that.
Okay.
There.
Is there an endowment that supports the structure? And
No, it's all supported by a at this point $25 annual fee for voluntary donations.
it's voluntary. So the HOA
Oh,
fee
neat.
there is completely voluntary.
Yeah, there's 1,200 homes between West Miltmore and Venetian Village.
Okay.
Maybe about 400 in the Venetian Village little square, and another 800 going down towards 83. That was West Miltmore.
I know you guys I don't know if you still do it, but at least leading up to COVID, I know you used to do the Halloween parties there.
Yeah.
The costume stuff. I know you do like the food truck sometime in the summer, and there was there a couple times. I think you had a band.
Yeah.
For like maybe not the 4th of July, but a summer party.
Yeah, our I would say the two biggest events that we have is our summer picnic and then the Halloween event.
Okay.
And we've added other things now. So now, we have an Easter Easter egg hunt in the spring.
Cute.
They do, Mary runs that, and we've got Mary Lewis. I'm bad with names, by the way.
That's okay. So am I.
I always forget her name. It's almost a running joke. We have a Christmas event. We got Whoville Christmas event.
Oh, cool. And what level of participation do you get from the community? How many people pay the fee?
I'm going to say it's less than 20%.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Considering like it makes it such a family-friendly place,
Yeah.
that's putting these things on, I would have thought there'd be a little bit more, especially for $25.
A lot of people, I think, are just so busy. It's the same kind of people that are too busy to go vote.
Right.
They're too busy to get involved in anything. Usually, though, the families that have kids and they come to the Halloween event, which, we do, we've got hot dogs, cookies, we've got presents. We have little bags of goodies to hand out.
Sure.
And it's a pretty neat thing. We get the hall all decorated. I don't know if you've ever been in there on Halloween or not. I've seen some pictures.
I've definitely seen some pictures.
But, we've had, fog machine. It's done up pretty well. And, it takes us a few days to get it all decorated and get ready to go and all that stuff. We've been really lucky to last a couple of years on getting a lot of donated food products from some of my customers.
Oh, that's nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got a Distinctive Foods has donated what are called bagel dogs.
Oh, I love bagel dogs.
Yeah.
Bagel
And-
dogs is like one of the things I can eat while I'm on keto with a special kind of thing. I can't eat a regular bagel dog, but I love it.
So, I'll go down there and get a couple cases of bagel dogs.
Oh, that's really
Instead
nice.
of us going out and buying the hot dogs and the buns and everything and doing them up ourselves like we've done in the past.
Sure.
But, we take the meager funds that we've accumulated and we spend them. We don't charge anybody anything.
Yeah.
And the same thing with our picnic. We're going to have a pig roast this year and we'll have Italian sausage and hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff too on the side.
Yeah.
But, it's going to cost us, a lot of money to get all the product that we're going to use and put out. But, we put a donation jar out. Some people put money into ththings. So,
That's nice.
we try to have
Nice.
raffles. Some people go around and get raffle presents from some of the businesses and stuff. So people got, a way to give back to us with the raffle.
Okay, so now do any of the residents of Venetian Village, West Miltmore, do they get access to Lake Miltmore and Sand Lake?
When they join, they get a sticker for the car,
Yeah.
so they can use all of the beaches and parks that are in our area as well as the township. So that pass or the sticker, sort of gives them the ability to park their car in those lots without getting hassled.
Oh, okay. And then what about like access to the lake if they have a boat? Is that another cost? Is that a fee?
Right, yeah. And we've done that because we spend a lot of money on treating the weeds and different
Right.
things. There's a $50 fee to get a key, which, if
And
you're
that gives you access to the launch?
right, that gives you to the launch that's on Sand Lake and Miltmore.
Yeah. And that's not just Venetian Village. That's every.
Well, those are
resident.
the two that got the gate and the lock because the
Okay.
township is taking care of that. And they spend a lot of money doing the weed control.
Right.
So it's a way of recouping some money.
Yeah.
And it doesn't recoup all of it. We spend more money on the weed control than we get in. But,
But can Lake Villa Township residents also go and get that key, or is it
yes.
just yes?
Yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah.
what I want to be clear.
So you could live in Lakeville or Lindenhurst and go get a, go
Yeah,
to the
even-
township, get a key and be on our lake.
Yep, even northern Round Lake Beach,
Right,
which is also
and
Lake
they
Villa
would get a
Township.
sticker to put in their window that's from the township, so that they can park there.
Yeah, awesome,
Because
great.
we've had problems in the past with people just coming up from Chicago,
Just dropping their boat.
dropping their boat and filling up the beach and different things. And then the residents complain. He goes, hey, all these people, they're not even from here if they even speak our language. And, maybe we can, get the beach for our use. So that, we get the signs up and everything.
Right.
That says, you got to have a pass or a sticker.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
And for the $25, I mean, you can rent our hall for a party. And if you are not a resident, you can rent it for $300.
oh, huge benefit to the residents.
And if you are a resident, you can get it for $75. If you pay your $25 fee, you can rent our hall for a party for $75.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
awesome. Well, thank you for all of that.
Yeah.
It's very important that when people are shopping that they know what kind of community and areas they're buying into. And you've talked about, do you have any upcoming events that you want to plug for the
July 20th is our the third weekend in July. That's our big picnic that's coming up. We're going to have the Lakes Area Swing Band will be there from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
Ooh, swing band. I love that.
They're really good. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like a full orchestra. I mean,
Oh, really?
oh, it's. I could send you some pictures, and I think I got a couple little videos too.
Cool.
But I mean, it's really professional sounding stuff, and we may have another band after them. We haven't finalized that yet. There's been some miscommunication, so we may have a second group there after 3.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. We got only about 5 minutes left, and I want to hit some Q&A. Some listeners have asked questions in the past, and we want to tackle those. And we've got a list of these questions right now, and I know some of these you've already answered in your Mythbusters, Kristen. So let's kind of skip 11 and 12, and I think maybe 13 if we can hit.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first questions that were submitted here are, what are closing costs and how much will they be?
Great question. Closing costs are the painful part of the process, and they can get very high. So depending on whether you're buying or selling, but they're easy to identify. So if you're a seller, your closing costs are primarily going to be, if you're using the professional realtor, you're going to have a commission. You're going to have to pay for a survey. Typically, if you're in an unincorporated area with a sewer and a well, you'll have to pay for a sewer and well inspection, but that's not really a closing cost, but it is a cost to consider when selling. And then you'll have title fees. In Illinois, we have a seller gets to select title, so therefore a seller has the privilege of paying for title, and they buy the policy for the buyer. If the buyer is obtaining a loan, then they'll also have to buy an additional policy to cover the lender. Additional closing costs for the seller will include the attorney, which ranges from, I've seen from very little amounts to very high amounts. I like to caution people from spending too little on their attorney. You want to make sure that you're working with someone who's not just kind of throwing you in a boiler room of paralegals who are going to do this. They don't know who you are. They don't answer your calls, and it makes it difficult to get those deals transferred. That's why we always recommend you work with attorneys we've worked with in the past and have had successful dealings with. But it doesn't mean you can't choose your own attorney by all means. If you're a buyer, you're going to have some fees to pay for your loan product, and then coming soon, buyers are going to have an extra expense to consider. In the past, the commission was typically always paid by the seller to the seller's listing agent, and then that listing agent would then share some of those funds with the buyer's agents. But new policy coming in August. This is coming top down, and there's still some legal battles going on about it. But it looks like the buyers could be on the hook for having to pay for their own representation moving forward. But that's still a moving target, believe it or not. I know PIN MLS, which is the MLS from Massachusetts, just filed a civil rights claim saying that there's a violation of free speech by not allowing sellers to offer compensation to cooperating buyer agents.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't really thought about that aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I never actually made that articulation of the freedom of speech, I always just kind of fell on the, how can you prohibit the seller from being able to offer compensation to anyone?
Up front.
Right, exactly. Especially if it's, it's transparent and it's
Yeah, absolutely.
above
I've
board.
spoken to the fact that there's potential for, discrimination from what you're offering from one agent to another, but I've never thought about the free speech aspect of it.
Yeah. And there's going to be some problems with this as we navigate, because there's going to turn a switch and things are going to change. So there could be problems with maybe buyers not getting proper representation because they don't feel they can afford to pay for representation, going directly to the listing agent whose sole fiduciary responsibility is to the seller, not the buyer. That's going to be problematic. And then for sellers, it could be problematic too, because one of the ways we attract buyers is by offering that offer of compensation to buyers agents to bring their buyers to look at your house. By not offering that, are we going to see less buyers coming through? This could have a chilling effect on the entire market. So we'll have more about that as we get closer.
Absolutely.
We are so out of time. I'm sorry, folks, but we got really sidetracked
We'll
in
get
the
some
beginning.
more questions next week.
We will.
promise.
We got sidetracked in the beginning of the show with some major technical difficulties, but we got them solved, luckily. And I want to thank our guests today, Mary Cole, who will be at First Draft today in Grace Lake at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. If anyone wants to go out there and meet her, she is running for the Lake County State's Attorney position. And I want to thank Paul Berker, who is, thank you so much for coming in our studio and sharing so much about unincorporated areas and Lake Villa Township and a little bit about your business. And I want to thank everyone for joining us once again for Unlocking Lake County. And we will be here next week with, I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time, insurance. We'll have insurance broker
That's a hot topic these days.
Dan Weir from the Dan Weir Agency here next week to talk about insurance, because insurance prices have risen so
sure have.
dramatically. But thanks again for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next week.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the heart of our community, exploring the ins and outs of real estate and meeting the people who make Lake County truly remarkable. Remember, every property has a story, and every community member holds a key to unlocking our county's full potential. Don't miss out on discovering more hidden gems and expert insights. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon for another episode of Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr. Until then, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep unlocking the possibilities that await you in Lake County. Thank you for listening, and see you next week.
Yeah.